Hey friends, welcome.
Welcome.
We are officially 5 weeks out from market, and I'm actually really excited this week. I'm sure it's going to vary week to week. It feels very close and like I still don't have enough stuff, but at the same time, I'm just getting really pumped for, having that whole experience. And I think it has to do with the fact that I had fun making things this week and I can't wait to show you those, but we'll get to that in a minute. A few disclaimers, a few bear with me's, if you will. First being, ignore the hair. We are trying to fade it out gracefully over the course of the next few weeks because I want to do something really fun for the market. I'm thinking maybe Halloween themed, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I'm trying to fade it out. Ignore it for a while, okay? The second thing is you may notice we are at a bit of a different camera angle in a way, but it's just because I'm using a different camera. So I have my kind of camera that I have been taking on vacations and things like that. And it's the camera I'm going to use when I go to the market. And I haven't really learned a ton of it. I just kind of use it. So I'm thinking to myself, it's a good idea to get used to it, see how well the battery does, all that good stuff, so that I'm prepared to use it at the market, hopefully being able to vlog in front of people. So fingers crossed. But yeah, so if I don't like how it turns out for the weekly videos, then I'll scrap it next week, but we'll see how it goes for this video. So just bear with me if it's not the best. As you saw by the title, we are going to do a review of the Knotty Pony yarn. I finally had a chance to use this yarn, so I'm going to give you my pros and cons in 3 different categories. First, we're going to talk about price. Second, we're going to talk about colors and availability. And then third, I will give you my full experience, pros and cons of what it's like working with this yarn. Quick funny story. I think it was my last video, might have been the one before that, where I showed you my Knotty Pony yarn haul. I was so excited to fill up my little shelf back there. And when I got done, I looked at it, I was like, man, it'd be cool if there was 2 more skeins there because it would look nice and full in the shelf. And I didn't think much of it. Made my reel, again, super excited. And then I saw someone else's reel on Instagram and they showed their yarn and I was like, wait, they have black. I don't have black. Why don't I have black? And then I came back in and I counted the number of skeins that I bought versus the skeins that I received. And I was indeed missing 2 skeins of black. I ordered 2 of every color. So I sent a message over to Carrie and she was like, oh my God, I'll get it out to you right away. I'll expedite it. I was like, don't spend money on expediting. Just ground ship it. It's not a big deal. And then a few days later, she got a message from someone else named Christina who was like, hey, I got 2 extra skeins of yarn. So it looks like when she was packaging, that's what happened. And she did explain, it's kind of funny. On her website, she has where you can pick each color individually, or she had where you can say all 12 and add that to your cart. And it would just add, a pack of 12. But her yarn doesn't come that way. So when she has that in her picking, software, she has one thing that says, click, I got all 12, but she has to individually go grab the 12 different colors and put them together. So it's a little more difficult for her to make sure that she's checking everything off because it's not a checklist of 12, it's a checklist of 1. So in my case, it was a quantity of 2. And it's funny because since then I've gone back on her site to get some information for this video, and that is no longer an option. So you would add each color to your cart, how many you want, and that makes it much easier for her to pick, which is completely understandable. All right, let's talk about cost. And when I'm doing this comparison, I am going to be using Premier Parfait Chunky as my comparison yarn because it's really all that I have to go by that's very comparable as far as like the size, and it's a chenille and all that stuff. So that's the one that I'm going to be comparing things to. So I'm going to give you some information on Parfait Chunky as compared to Knotty Pony because a lot of people use Parfait Chunky and that might help you kind of relate these things together. And I'm going to be checking my notes. So if you see me looking down, that's what that's for. Now, Premier Parfait Chunky comes in skeins of 100 grams and 120 meters for $4.99 per skein on their website. I'm not going into shipping. I'm not going into Hirschner's. I know that you can get it cheaper at Hirschner's, but half the time you're going to pay out the wazoo for shipping unless you're, waiting around for one of their deals. So we're not talking that. We're just going straight to the bare bones per skein pricing from the source. That boils down roughly to about 0.042 cents per meter. Now, if we look at Knotty Pony yarn does also come in a 100-gram skein, but it's 80 meters long, and that's for $3.99 per skein. That comes out roughly to 0.57 cents per meter. The reason I call that out is because you might look at it and go, oh, it's the same amount of grams. That's the same thing. But length is kind of where it's at when it comes to us creating a project. You're going to win yarn chicken in one case and lose yarn chicken in another when it comes to stitch count and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to just call that out. Now, really quickly, you can see why that's the case when you look at these two yarns. So if you look at these, the top one is Knotty Pony, the bottom one is Premier Parfait Chunky, and you can see that this one's definitely thicker and it's a little more luxurious. They're both considered a number 6 bulky, but you can kind of tell that this one's got a little more to it. Now, the one thing I will say is that when you look at the Parfait Chunky, it looks a little more full all the way around versus you can kind of see the center of the Knotty Pony yarn, and it kind of varies by colors. And that's the same thing with Parfait Chunky. You know, you can get one skein that feels a certain way, looks a certain way, another skein that's completely different. And the same thing goes with any yarn. I wanted to crochet 2 of the exact same plushies so I could show you the difference, but I ran out of time and kind of forgot, honestly. And this morning I thought about it. But what I did is I just did a quick magic circle, a 6 single crochet magic circle, just to kind of show you the difference in size when something's worked up. So this is our Knotty Pony yarn. This is Premier Parfait Chunky. There's a very slight difference in this being a little bit bigger than this, but I think the big difference is when you turn them to the side. So I'm going to put these back to back, and you can see that the Knotty Pony yarn is much more thick than the Premier Parfait Chunky. I say much more, it's not a ton, but it's enough that it's noticeable when you work something up. I do have plans to crochet some things this week, and when I do next week's video, I'll just do a really quick show and tell because there's something I want to crochet multiples of, but I don't have the right colors in Parfait Chunky or in Knotty Pony altogether, so I'm going to have some in one and some in the other, so I'll be able to show you a specific plushie side by side. So we'll do that next week. So in this case, when it comes to price, the pros are that, you know, Knotty Pony is cheaper by the skein, but the con is that if you're going by the meter, then it is a couple of cents more. I don't think it's a deal breaker. It's literally like a penny. And I'm somebody who I'm willing to pay a little more if I'm getting a better experience than I am if I'm, you know, having a really squeaky yarn on my hook. All right, let's talk about color availability. Now, it's to be expected that a brand new yarn line is not going to have as many colors as a company like Premier, who's been around for years. So Premier has 73 colors as of me checking their website the other day. And I will say that almost always 9 or 10 of those are never in stock, at least when I check. So call that what you will. But again, they've been around for a lot longer. Knotty Pony has 12 different colors available, and I'll put a little picture here so you can kind of see the color card. I'm not going to go through each one of the colors. When it comes to color, I think one of my biggest struggles with Knotty Pony is that there aren't very many kind of vibrant with pastel that you can put together, if that makes sense. So of the same color. Their vibrant colors are gorgeous, vibrant, well pigmented, saturated, beautiful colors. And their pastels are beautiful as well, but there's not a situation where you can do something like, you know, you do a pink axolotl and you'll have, you know, a dark pink frill. The only color that you can do that in is blue. And what's funny about that, so you have a nice vibrant blue and you have a pastel blue, but what's funny about that is the pastel blue was kind of an accident. She said on one of her recent videos that it was actually supposed to be gray, but came in and it was a light blue. So she just ran with it because she wasn't going to, you know, ship it all back and get new. But that's the only one that has that kind of ability to do that. The rest of the colors don't really go well when it comes to trying to pair, you know, a darker and lighter of the same color together to have that shade difference in a plushie. So the pros for this one are the colors themselves. The vibrant colors are really rich and pigmented and gorgeous. The pastels are beautiful as well. And the thing that gets it for me are the browns. Her browns are like the perfect browns. You've got this dark kind of chocolatey color, and then you've got this caramel color, and they're just gorgeous. Summing up the cons, like I mentioned, you're not able to do that same color tone on tone difference with a pastel and a bright. The second con would be there's not like a cream or a beige type color that's available. You're getting stark white or into the browns that I showed you. There's kind of no in between, and I would really love to see some kind of cream color in there. Last but not least, and most importantly in my book, is how well this yarn works up. I actually posted a reel on my Instagram because I was blown away when I first started working with this yarn. My first test is always and forever going to be a magic ring. How many stitches can I get in that bad boy and still be able to pull it closed? For Premier Parfait Chunky, half the time I have to cinch after 2 stitches so I can make sure that I'm going to be okay and able to pull it tight. When it came to Knotty Pony, I got 8 stitches in the magic ring and pulled it like butter. It was incredible. I'm super happy with it when it comes to making a magic ring in Knotty Pony. I have 3 makes that I'm going to show you in this week's makes that are 100% made with Knotty Pony. And one of them, it was kind of late in the evening. I probably should have put my hook down. I did not. And I kept screwing this thing up like nobody's business. So I had to frog and redo and frog and redo. And I will say that Knotty Pony handled it very well, at least just as well, if not better, than Premier Parfait Chunky. I could tell after like the 4th time, there was 2 issues. Number 1, it did start to show where I was doing it. And number 2, I needed to go to bed because after 4 times of trying something, you know it's time to stop. But it was very durable if you have to do some reworks. And I think that's really great when it comes to a chenille yarn. And last but not least, it really does not shed much. Now, I will say that that does vary by color. As I got into using different colors, there were a few skeins, again, like any yarn, that were a little bit more on the rough side than the other skeins, but for the most part, it did not shed very much. I just cut these 2 this morning so I could take these and show you as samples, and let's see what it does. I'm not thinking that nothing will come off, but it should probably be less. So a little bit of fluff comes off the very end, but once you get past that, it doesn't really give much more than that. Whereas Parfait Chunky, you'll be down to the strings. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, so it definitely does not shed as much. So quick pro and con recap. Pros are going to be that you can work it into a magic ring with no issue. It is very durable for frogging and redos. And number 3 is going to be that it does not shed as much. Now, when it comes to the cons for Knotty Pony, there were a few. I will say that I ran into more factory knots than I would have liked to have seen within the skeins. Again, it wasn't every color. It's very interesting how certain skeins were just kind of rough in every way, but then the rest were like amazing in every way. So I definitely did see a few more factory knots than I would have liked. It just so happens that what I was crocheting, it didn't really make a difference. They were hidden on the inside and I could just keep moving on. But there are some cases where you're crocheting something that you're going to see both sides, and a factory knot is a huge bummer when it comes to that, because you're gonna have to cut off way back so that you have enough length to tie, or to hide your ends. And then last but not least, there were some rough spots within the yarn. I have a little bit of footage that I'll overlay here where you can kind of see where there were some areas of the green skein in particular, I wanna say gave me the most kind of issues when it came to factory knots, as well as having some rough spots, and it could have just been a manufacturing issue that day. But there were some patches in it that were a little bit rough, and then some areas of slight discoloration. I didn't notice those until I worked up the whole plushie, and I actually thought, like, did I get something on there? But I didn't. It was a little bit of discoloration within the skein itself. But fortunately enough, it just so happened to be in a place where I was sewing something on, so you couldn't see it. And I forgot to take footage of that, but there was a slight discoloration in one of the skeins. So my overall thoughts on Knotty Pony yarn. I love this yarn. I enjoy working with it so much. It is so smooth. It just glides. When I was making my magic ring this morning, I was like, all right, great. I grabbed the Parfait Chunky, and it so happens that's not the best Parfait Chunky skein that I have. And I was making that, and it's like, it was a little squeaky. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I would definitely say that I'm going to be purchasing Knotty Pony. For any of the colors that they do have, that does become a bit of a hassle in some ways because, if you're placing an order, you want to get that free shipping. So you want to make sure you're ordering enough of a quantity and all that stuff. So definitely something to keep in mind, but I am definitely going to be ordering more Knotty Pony. And if she comes out with more colors, you better believe I'm going to be ordering those. Carrie, I don't think you watch my videos, but if you do, we need a purple, like a vibrant purple, because as vibrant as this blue is and that red is, I can only imagine what a royal purple would look like in Knotty Pony, and I need that, as well as like a mushroom or, off-white color, please, if I can make a request. All right, speaking of Knotty Pony, let's get into the makes for this week, and I will start with showing you the things that I made out of Knotty Pony. The one color that I have of this yarn that I really wasn't sure what to make with is the very vibrant red, but I decided to go ahead and grab one of the patterns that I had bought a while ago, and I was thinking about it for market, but I wasn't, feeling like I had enough time. We made time this week, and I crocheted Darth the Dragon by Snugglebeans Crochet, and I did it pretty much to the T of what she has on the cover of her pattern because that vibrant red caught me, and I was like, oh, I can use Knotty Pony for that. So I did Darth. I think I changed the color of his wings. I think her wings were the color of the body, but I just wanted them to pop a little more, so I made them an orange. But this is how it works up. For all of my Knotty Pony makes, I'm using a 5.5mm hook, just like I do for Premier Parfait Chunky, and I don't get any crazy holes or anything like that. Stitches are pretty tight, so for me, that size works up really well. When it comes to this pattern itself, I will definitely be making more of these. I really enjoyed it. It's adorable. The only downside to this pattern, if I was going to say something at all, which is not knocking the pattern any whatsoever, is it says like you can go ahead and make it weighted, which I definitely wanted to do, but it doesn't really tell you how much to put in there. The only other weighted style patterns that I have are from All From Jade, and in her pattern, she tells you like 50 grams or 80 grams or whatever it is. So I just kind of went with the 50 that she recommended, and that happened to work out right, but it was a little bit of a tight fit. So he's squishy, but not necessarily as squishy as I would have liked. But yeah, that's the only thing. So if you're not sure how much to put in, try 50 grams or less if you're going to work that pattern. The next thing that I made with Knotty Pony is a pattern by Fox and Faye, and it is called Mulberry, and that's this guy right here. I love him. I used some purple pupil eyes, and not in the pattern are, I added some moss, kind of some fluffy yarn as moss, and a little mushroom to the top of his hat. The pictured version is like a mushroom hat, but I just went a little different route with it. He's got his little satchel here. He's freaking adorable. I love this pattern. To me, he's like a junior forest guardian. Same vibes, same adorableness, but in a little bit of a smaller package and a much quicker make. All right, the last thing that I made exclusively in Knotty Pony is a pattern by Channels Crochet, and that is called Frogdrick, if I said it right. The frog. And that's this guy here. And he's adorable. He has a little mushroom bag. I think he's so cute. This is the one where I had a stain, and it just so happened the stain on the skein falls quickly in the drain. The stain was right where I placed the eyeball, and I sewed it on, and I was like, I didn't get a picture, but that's fine. I'm glad it covered it up. So this guy's adorable. He is also weighted. He has 100 grams in him because he's a chunky baby and he could fit it. But I love him. I think he's so cute. I feel like mine didn't come out as bulbous. I don't know if I missed a row or something. I feel like the ones in the picture were much more round, but that was also a different style yarn. So I don't know. But he's adorbs. And I got him done pretty quickly. He's a quick make, obviously, because this is a giant circle. You got arms and legs. You actually crochet the arms in, and you sew on the legs and the eyes. All right, so that wraps up all of the Knotty Pony makes. The next thing I have for you is made in Bernat Blanket, and it is the Sitting Kitty by Mom Stitchetti. I wanted to have a different cat. I keep trying different cats. I don't love the loaf cats. They're fine. I know they're popular, but they're kind of not my jam. I have some, but and just to kind of give you a comparison, I've got a loaf cat here. They're of course derpy and adorable and pretty chunky size-wise, but I do like this better. I still think that when it comes to makes for a market, the little chonky cats that I have are probably more my favorite. I do like this end product a lot better. It just takes a little longer, and this one was not a good experience while I was making it just because of this yarn. This is an old Bernat formula skein that I got on clearance. Sometimes clearance isn't worth it, people. So if I was to make this again, and I will make this again, and I feel like he's a good candidate for putting some weight into his tush, I'm going to make him with Knotty Pony because I think that'll be a much better experience. Next up is the Cappy Ghost by Dee Dee's Plushies. So that's this guy right here. And he's super cute, but man, getting this ghost costume on and off is a workout. This is what he looks like without it. He's adorable. Gets a little bit of an alien head when you squeeze off his costume. I don't see myself making this one again, just simply because it took a really long time. And again, getting this on and off is kind of, I don't know. It's just not my thing. The pattern was well written, easy to understand, especially considering the fact that you had to make all of these gaps and things for the ears and the eyes. It told you exactly what to do to make sure that you got a good fit. So definitely recommend the pattern if that's something that you're looking for. It just wasn't my jam, so it's probably not something I'm going to make again. Next up is a rat pattern by QB Crochet. I mentioned that I wanted to have some more rats. I only made the one, but this is a different pattern than what I was making before. I saw a YouTuber that held up one of these and I was like, that's the rat that I've been looking for my whole life. I like the ones that I had, but this one felt more like what I was looking for originally. I'll put their name on the screen because I'm drawing a complete blank at the moment, but this rat pattern came out so much more like what I was expecting. I do like my original rats. I brought one out so that I could show you, but as you can see, these are like really long and lanky, whereas this guy's a nice chonky guy. And I just love that girth. And I love how they did the baubles where it's kind of got this, the hair color here and then the little toe bean kind of color there. Yeah, so I just really like the final make of this. It didn't take any longer than this one did. My strategy at the market is probably going to be to not put them out at the same time because I do think I can get, $1 or $2 more for this guy than for this guy. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I was thinking that I'm not putting all of my rats out at once anyway, so that maybe there's always 1 or 2 on the table. I don't know. I might make more if there's time, but like I said, we're only 5 weeks out, so there's probably not any time. So I may be a little bit delulu, but we'll see. But either way, I love the way this one came out, and yeah, so highly recommend this pattern, easy to follow. Once you get the hang of doing these double color bobble stitches, you're good to go. And last but not least, my makes wrap up for the week with a bunch of bag charms. And I'll show you these guys in just a second here individually, but wanted to kind of give you a quick look. I have 2 of each animal, so I'll run through those with you. The only 2 that I did not crochet this week are the sitting bees. Those I just grabbed from my minis bin from my makes a few weeks back and used those just to kind of, put those on here. I wasn't going to use anything from the minis bin because I wanted it to be slightly different, but the sitting bees were just calling to me to be part of the bag charm family, so that they are. These are going to go in mystery boxes. I'm not going to have them out on a keychain ring thing display or anything like that. They're going to go in mystery boxes, and I'll have a picture up of what's all inside of them, and people won't know what they're going to get, and that'll be kind of my test run to see if mystery stuff goes well. When it comes to the hardware choices and the crystals that were used, this is all my son. He went ahead and did this for me. And the way that we did it was, he did an acrylic loop into the plushie. I did all the plushies again. Did the chain in the color he wanted to, added the hardware in the color he wanted to. He made these little crystal danglies individually for each plushie based on colors that he thought went well. Yeah, so I'm really excited about the fact that he helped out with that. But I've got 2 of the Raven, and this is the pattern by Annie Caraway, Birdie Friends. I just did it in Bernat velvet yarn using a 4mm hook, and this is the size that it came out to. Next up is Toads, and this is the Ted the Thick Toad pattern by Canadian Rue and Crochet. And yes, he does have a booty. And man, the the velvet yarn accentuates that thing, but I've got 2 of those. Next up is the little pocket dragon by Sweet Softies. So I've got 2 of these guys. There's the crystals if you can see them. And I did modify this one slightly. This is a free pattern on her website. It's kind of her T-Rex pattern, and then she has a mod for the dragon. I did the wings differently. She does them and then sews them on, and I was like, I'm not about that. So I just kind of crocheted out and then crocheted down my chain and back in, because I was not about that sew it on life when it came to something so tiny. Next up, I have 2 loaf cats. And this is not a pattern. I just freehanded these. I started using the, Annie Carraway loaf cat pattern, but I realized it was going to work up way too big. So I just kind of stopped where I wanted to in my increases. And then just to do the ears, I slip stitched on, and crocheted these. I just did like a chain 2, I think. And I did a single crochet or might have been a half double, and then just slip stitched into the next stitch. So it wasn't anything major. And then again, just chained off for the tail and crocheted my way back down. So that's those 2. I'll show you what the bees look like. But again, I did not crochet these this week. These are the 2 sitting bees that I already had. And the crystal choices that we have, he did a great job on the hardware and the crystal choices. So we have some in silver, some in gold, some in black, which is really cool. And again, I'm just going to have a sign with a photo of all of the different options and say that the hardware color and crystals can vary. Now, when it comes to next week's makes, I based that off of a little bit of research I was doing on my own inventory. So I'm really starting to realize that I've got to come together with exactly what I want to do for pricing. My plan is probably the week before the market or the weekend before the market, I'm going to set up my tables and put one of each thing out, and even kind of like write down on a piece of paper the dollar amount that I was thinking of charging for them, so that I can go, wow, that's a standout. That's way too much or too little for that item, and scoot it into the next pile and make changes and things like that. I kind of need a visual for that. But what I did in the meantime was in Notion, I have all the pricing that I'm thinking so far. So I dropped that into a chart. And as you can see, this chart is fantastic because it shows me how many of each item I have at what price. And you'll see the most thing that I have is $10 items. So I have 23 $10 items. And then when it comes to, $12, $15, and $18, I have 11 of each of those. So, in looking at this, I don't feel like it's as balanced as it needs to be. I want a lot more items in the $5 range. There's something that's $6. I don't know what that is. I'll probably shift it either to the $7 range or I'll shift it to the $5 range. But I'm going to also narrow these down so I have fewer dollar figures, if that makes sense. But that definitely tells me that I want a lot more items that are like $5. I only have 10 things that are $5 right now, and I definitely want to increase that amount. So next week is essentially going to be Weirdo Week, because those are the things that I was thinking are going to fit into that $5 price range. So that'll be things like some fidget worms, I think I have the little stress ball things in there, and then maybe some googly-eyed monsters. So just small little kind of pocket makes that I think will be really quick to work up, and that $5 would be a really good price for. So that's going to be the focus for next week. So I'm really excited to get started on that after I get this video edited and done and jumping into that. And I will definitely be using Knotty Pony for a lot of that. And then I am going to be using some Premier Parfait Chunky for that. So you'll be able to kind of see the exact same thing worked up into each, and it's just kind of what I needed because of the colors that I want. So yeah, that is the plan for next week. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so, so much for watching. Oh, also, I forgot. Oh, yeah, today we started the pattern test for Frankenstein. So I'm so, so excited. So yeah, the pattern is out for the testers. They are actively working on it. And it's so surreal to have someone send like a photo and be like, here's where I'm at. Or, like just the fact that someone is crocheting something that I wrote up is just, I don't know. It's so exciting. I'm just so happy with it. But anyway, I just thought I would share that with you as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.